So Donald Trump found guilty in court, but he has pulled off another important win in the race to become the Republican Party nominee. But his sole remaining challenger, Nikki Haley, has said she's not going down without a fight. Joining me live is Peter Matthews, Professor of Political Science at Cyprus College. Peter, a very good morning our time to you. And what did you make
morning,
of
Tim.
Yesterday's court appearance and everything that followed?
Yes, and it looks like this was a tremendously message-sending verdict, because that $83 million was about a message that women should not be denigrated anyway by a man like Trump, and the jury said he did it, and he deserves to pay for it. And it's a very strong message about women voters as well. Don't forget, Nikki Haley is winning among women, independents, and moderate Republicans, and that's why she did so well in New Hampshire, better than expected. Now, this is a very important verdict, and I think it'll have an impact somewhat on some of the electorate, especially in the general election.
We just saw a piece there, and it was mentioned at the end that he has had a sugar hit, Donald Trump, every time the whole court situation is mentioned. Is this different, do you think? Is this different now that he's been found guilty and there's, look, in our terms, it's 126 million Australian dollars, 83 US?
It's a lot of money, Tim, you could imagine, but this is a very, like I said, a message-sending decision, and it could have an impact on a segment of his voters. But most importantly, it was a degradation of a real human being, a woman who's been abused by this, according to the jury and the verdict. And that's what the message sending, that this should not be tolerated in America. And it could certainly, ethically speaking, that's what's important and right, but also politically, it can hurt him with a certain segment of the electorate, definitely, even moderate men, Republicans.
Nikki Haley says she's not going out without a fight, and they're off to South Carolina, of course, her home state, but Donald Trump is well ahead there after winning New Hampshire and Iowa.
He is quite a bit ahead. The numbers are like 58% to 31 for Nikki Haley in her home state in South Carolina. But keep in mind that there's still a message that came out of the New Hampshire primary that Trump has consolidated his base. Only about 3 out of 4 Republicans support him, whereas 1 out of 4 supported Haley, and the independents and moderates didn't support him at all. So he needs to bring, if he wants to win, I think he does want to win, he needs to bring in a broader base of support, and he's having a very difficult time bringing in the other folks who would vote for him if he was more reasonable about things, and they're basically holding back, including some Republicans. And South Carolina, of course, is probably more than likely going to go to him in this election coming up in a month, but we don't know what's going to happen within the month. Some of these trials and things are bearing on him. But we have to see how it happens in South Carolina. And I think in the end, Donald Trump will be the nominee. And the main challenge for him and for the country will be the general election with Joe Biden. And Biden is looking pretty positive about his chances, because he's starting to bring back some of his supporters. And then he's framing the election as a race between him and Trump, between authoritarianism and democracy. And that could resonate.
Yeah, and the irony is that although they won't come out and say it, Joe Biden and the Democrats wanted to be Trump.
You're absolutely right, Tim. I believe they would prefer to run against Trump than against Haley. We know the polling numbers. When Haley was matched against President Biden, Nikki Haley came out double digits ahead of President Biden in the general election, whereas Donald Trump came out about 4% ahead of Biden in the general election. And that's, of course, an election that's run state by state, not nationwide. And that's something that Biden has to be concerned about. Also, states like Michigan, which are swing states in which he's lost some support. And Trump could take that state, and that could be a danger for Biden. But I tell you what, Haley would be the stronger candidate for sure. And that's why Democrats want to run against Trump.
Often people talk about middle America. Peter, what do you think middle America thinks of what's going on at the moment in US politics?
You know, Tim, we could gauge that a few years ago with no problem at all, because there was a middle America, so to speak, politically and certainly economically. Today, there's much more of a gap between rich and poor, and politically between right and left. And that's a problem to decide who is middle America. What do they think? The country is pretty much divided between those who support Trump, although that's a minority, I believe. The MAGA faction of the Republican Party supports him 100%. But that's still only it's not as the vast majority of the Republican Party. It's certainly a majority. And I believe that if you look at the other part of America, the middle American people, they're really a little bit alarmed and confused about what could happen in this year with so many different variables, so many different dangers on the horizon, not just President Trump, the chance of him winning, possibly, but also these trials that he's going through legally, and how will the courts react? You're seeing some judges hesitant to, put him to sequester him when he violates their instructions about his behavior in court. They're reluctant to give him the final treatment, but they find him here and there. You can see the country is in very dangerous condition and really worried about what could happen. And we have to get it together, Tim, so we can preserve American democracy. And those of us who believe in the rule of law have to really, really be adamant about getting out there and voting and educating other people about it.
And that's the thing, it's not compulsory in the United States. Look, yesterday, right. And just wrapping it up, it did look like when Donald Trump's lawyer came out and spoke to the media, it looked more like a Trump rally than a lawyer saying that we're going to appeal a decision.
Exactly. I think that President Trump is counting, or ex-former President Trump is counting on making these court appearances into political rallies. And that's a totally different thing than trying to fight a legal case. That's why he's doing so poorly on the legal side, and probably will do poorly in some cases with the cases that are coming up, unless he starts using the focus on the legal aspect as opposed to making them into political rallies, which alienate the country and alienate the judges and even the jury. So what does he want to do? He just wants to win the election, regardless of what happens to him legally? Well, let's see if he can win. If he gets convicted, many voters, even his own supporters, are saying they will not support him. They'll probably stay home or vote for someone else if he's convicted of a felony. So you better be a little bit more cautious about that. And let's see what happens with his lawyer and what she does for him.
Yeah, big year ahead. Professor, always good to chat.
Always good to talk to you, Tim. Thank you.